This is Catherine Parker from The Haunting of Hill House. You're listening to Derek Thomas and the Monday Morning Critic podcast.
This is D.B. Sweeney from The Cutting Edge, and you are listening to Derek Thomas and Monday Morning Critic podcast.
Hey, this is comedian Jim Florentine, and you're listening to the Monday Morning Critic podcast.
General Zod, for the crimes of murder and high treason, the Council has sentenced you and your fellow insurgents to 300 cycles of somatic reconditioning. Do you have any last words?
You won't kill us yourself! You wouldn't sully your hands, but you'll damn us to a black hole for eternity! Jarrell was right. You're a pack of fools! Every last one of you!
My next guest is a generally humble and kind man. He's extremely talented. The diversity of his roles is unmatched. Please welcome actor Julian Richings. Julian, how is life treating you today? How is life in general?
It's very good, thank you. I'm enjoying myself, and I'm happy to see Summers here.
So I gotta say, just researching your life, when I start researching, it takes about 2 to 3 hours, sometimes 4 or 5, depending on somebody's life. So I'm Googling, because that's how I start, and then I work it through.
Okay.
I don't want to give away my methods because I don't want people copying me. But when I initially Googled your name, and I knew what, I figured it out very quickly, but I'm like, Julian Richings, and it says death. I'm like, oh my God, I just talked to him. There's no way he's dead. And I put two and two together. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I'm glad to see you're alive and well. And
I am.
But I was so freaked out because I'm like, I definitely just spoke to him. So
Yeah, alive and well, and living in Ontario, and all is good. Yeah, it's a character that I've actually played a few times, but it's really come into its own with my performance in the show Supernatural, because it just has a massive reach, and Here we are in season 15. So, if you Google me, that comes up immediately.
And it's amazing because it has a following that's like very similar, in my opinion, to the Walking Dead universe that has a huge, massive following. It's amazing what people, they almost look at you. It's hard to explain these cult. I don't want to call it a cult show because that would imply that it's not popular, because it's super popular. But it's like, It's got this, like you said it well, it's got a massive, massive following.
It has, and it's a very specific demographic that's evolved, and it's got its own sense of identity too. It looks at itself as a community. And what's been interesting for me is the evolution of the convention phenomenon. And that's been very much a part of the Supernatural story, where the conventions have kind of tagged the show, and they've become more and more popular. At first, they worked against the wishes of the show producers. They didn't want everybody involved in this kind of secondary activity. But now it's become very much a part of the whole thing, and appearances by actors in these conventions are a great opportunity to kind of redefine the relationship between the fan base and the actors. It's been very interesting.
Yeah, and I'm so happy you said that. You pretty much stole my next question. I was going to say, I've watched you at these conventions because they're all over the place. I watch you, the interviews done with people. You're very good to other people, and I noticed that about you. What has been your take on the convention scene personally? Do you like the convention scene? Is that something you like?
Well, I started off, Galaxy Quest, the great movie Galaxy Quest, where Alan Rickman is there, and he's going, I played Richard III once, and here I am, this ridiculous situation. I must admit, I had a bit of that, and I'm going, I'm a serious actor. I don't necessarily want to be defined by a specific role in a specific show. And so I was a little hesitant, and then I began to kind of relax into it. I did a few of these appearances, and I can't speak for all the different shows and all the different spin-offs that there are, but the one in Supernatural is actually quite special because there are so many supporting actors that a nucleus has been formed around a band. A couple of musicians, a couple of the characters, Rob Benedict and Richard Speight, are musicians themselves, and they have bands. And these bands perform the glue, or provide the glue, for the entire weekend with karaoke's, concerts, an opportunity for fans and performers to get up and do a thing, oh, there's your dog.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very sensitive dog in the background. Dear. So it's been a great opportunity actually to kind of recalibrate my theater skills and my one-on-one interactions with an audience. I've enjoyed myself, especially as I've got to relax into them and understand the value of them.
Yeah, you stole my next question. I was going to say your because I know you, and we're going to get into this, the real heart of your developing into an actor. But you have a great theater background. But I almost think it's like a 50-50 thing here, Julian. I feel like it is theater for sure. But I almost feel like I've seen you speak to these people at the conventions. It's just this wonderful interaction, and it reminds me a little bit of stand-up comedy. You are gifted in that way, I feel like.
Well, I've been given permission to. Don't forget that the character that I play, Death. It actually gives me amazing permission. I walk on stage and I smile, and people can't believe it. They expect me to come on like the Grim Reaper and to devastate everything in my sight and to be serious and introspective. So if I'm just my natural self and I make a joke, I've got the audience in the palm of my hand. So it's such a gift to go from there and to just be myself, really. And that's what I kind of learned to be. It's the classic actor thing where you try to actually be natural rather than put on airs and graces, and eventually you end up with something that's genuine and people can relate to.
Yes, and the last word being the key one, genuine, because I really feel like when you're talking to people, it is coming across as genuine. They feel like it's just two people talking where, I've covered conventions, I've, been to many of them. Sometimes, and I'm not going to name specific actors, but it seems like many times it's a forced kind of, I'm here because I'm paid to be here, and I'm just going to kill off 10 to 15 minutes. Well, with you, it's like just two friends sharing a story. It's very sincere, very genuine. I'm glad you said that.
Well, I enjoy it. And you have to remember, underneath it all, I have this philosophy where really actors, I think, at their finest are empty vessels. And they're available to absorb whatever is required to tell the story. So often an actor isn't honestly as fascinating and interesting as people make out. So I'm the same, where if I'm put on the spot, in an interview like this, a conversation that we're having, I sort of feel forced to become interesting. And unless I keep reminding myself that no, you can just be yourself, it's tricky. There's a tendency for actors to over-decorate.
Right. No, I get it. And, if at all during any of these, if I'm wrong, please call me on it. But you're born in England for sure. And you said, is it Hampstead? Do I have that right? Is it?
No, I have two versions of my truth. I don't know how. Okay. Somebody somewhere thinks that I was born in Hampstead. The truth is that I was born in Oxford, in England, right in the middle of the country.
Gotcha. And you did go to the University of Exeter, is that correct?
Correct. Yes, I didn't go to the traditional drama school. I went to a university in the 70s. There was a sense of a changing time in English theatre, where the old repertory theatre system was collapsing. Television was becoming more important, but then so was community theatre.
Right.
And Exeter was a pioneer looking at physical theatre, the theatre practiced by Jerzy Grotowski in Poland, Asian theatres, Commedia dell'arte, different influences on theatre, not the traditional English thing of, English actors are terribly good at speaking from the throat up, that sort of thing. So I was part of a bit of an alternate movement in England in the 70s.
Yeah, and I had 2 weeks ago, I had an English actor. He was in Game of Thrones. He was in Ricky Gervais's new Netflix special. And I had to kind of, because he was really sweet about promoting the interview. And he said, I had a natter with Derek. And I'm like, what does a natter mean? And I looked it up. It's a conversation. I feel like a fool. I'm like, is he making up words? I'm like, what's a natter? So I get you didn't go the traditional route, but what was your focus there? Did your focus help you with your acting career in the long run?
Oh, absolutely. It prepared me completely as an actor, but the emphasis was more sort of on physical impulses, on being a an actor that could do a lot of things and that would move intuitively with the body, so that speech sort of came last. We were trained physically. We did a lot of yoga at the time, which was considered to be a very unorthodox way of training, in the 70s. And we followed specific disciplines, so that when we came through at the end, we were well equipped to really work in any language, because the physicality made us articulate in our bodies. And that's something that I've always maintained, is that I do feel that I'm a physical actor, and I try to bring an entire physicality to my performance.
And I would imagine your theater background was huge in that. But before I get to that, is there, and I always ask this of all my actors, is there a mentor or mentors or somebody that you definitely credit for being where you are today?
No, not one specific person. A series of influences, movies that I saw when I was a kid that influenced me and inspired me, figures in my childhood that encouraged me to act, because growing up in England in the 60s and 70s, there were no drama programs in school. One of the main influences actually was my older brother, who had this peculiar talent. He used to build things. He used to build environments and fairgrounds and circuses. And he needed somebody to fill them. So I would be the ringmaster for him, or we would build a haunted house in our back shed and get the neighborhood kids coming in, and I would be the ghost, and I would do all these different things. So and then my parents were smart enough to realize he has a strange talent. He has to go to a youth club where they put on plays and build scenery. Everybody else wanted to be an actor, but my brother built the sets and became a scene designer in the theater.
How cool is that? That is really...
Yeah, and then I went to the same youth club that put on the same plays that I'd been helping him build the scenery. And then when I was older, I became an actor. And then I actually have a younger brother that went to the same youth club and became a lighting designer. Right. So I'm very aware of how everybody is creative. We have these urges within us. It's just if they're harnessed at the right time in your life.
And kudos to your parents for, it sounds like they were very supportive in what you wanted to do, and or even more so, realizing the potential that you had.
Yeah, and very lower middle class, post-war English people without much education, but a sense of wanting to do the best for their kids. So we were very fortunate.
And it's always amazing to me, Julian, too, because I have this conversation a lot, and it's amazing how many actors have parents that were very much unlike your parents, where they were like, get something that's more concrete, get some, it brings to mind, I saw Rocket Man last week, the adversity Elton John with, non-supportive parents. I have actors that have the same story. So, it could have went a different way if your parents, actually, let me ask that, could it have went a different way if your parents didn't see that true potential that you had?
I think I would have found some way of harnessing the need to perform. I'm a middle child, and I think I innately am an actor. I realize that I'm a different mask to different people, and I sometimes question who I am really. I think I've mentioned that already, about the whole sense of, actors being empty vessels. And that's emphasized too with middle children, who I think often turn out to be performers. I don't know. Maybe I could have taken it to sport or to politics or to something, but I do think that we find something, we find some outlet, or most people are fortunate enough to in some way or another.
And do you tour with the theater company in England or in Canada?
Well, I started off in England. I was about 3 or 4 different theatre companies, and then one of them started to tour internationally in the late 70s, early 80s. We toured Chicago, New York, and Toronto. I loved all 3 cities, but I struck a particular chord with Toronto. It felt like it was a center for an evolving theatre scene, and television and film was also beginning to mature. And there was a distinctly Canadian voice that was separating itself from its British roots and its American influence just across the border. So there was a real sense that matched my sense of exploring myself, who I was, and my need to kind of find an identity. So I stayed. I stayed in Toronto. I loved it. I loved the difference, the landscape, the vastness of the place, but also the diversity of all the different cultures in Toronto. And then I met my wife, who's a Toronto woman, and I've been here permanently for 35 years.
Wow, very cool. And before I get too serious on you, you're known for saying this, and I think when you say this at conventions, people love it. Is your love for junk food, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the funny things that's sort of a coincidence on the show, Supernatural, where my character enjoys pizza and hot dogs and tamales and stuff. So, it was perfect. I remember when I first came to New York, everybody was eating pizza. I couldn't believe it. And being English and growing up in an English food environment, I seriously thought New York pizza was health food. I thought, but you can see green peppers on top. It's amazing.
That's great. And you mentioned that, but you can in your repertoire, what people don't realize is that I believe you also sing. Correct? Am I wrong with that, or am I right with that?
Well, you're right, but very badly. I can perform or deliver or fake, but I'm really not a singer. So I'm not at my strength singing.
How about teaching? Have you done that?
I enjoy it too. Your career fluctuates, and there are periods of unemployment, and there are periods where you just have to throw about 5 plates up in the air and hope something's going to land. During some of those times, I've worked as a guest artist in schools. I really enjoy that. I particularly like working with young audiences that are going to theatre for the first time, young audiences in projects and stuff that kind of go to the theatre thinking it's going to be very stuffy and very inaccessible. I like to break it down and to make them feel welcome and to try and enable them to understand the place and feel comfortable.
And I'm trying to throw a timeline on your arrival in Canada. Was it around 1984? Am I right with that?
A bit earlier, actually. I first came in 80, and I went back and forth, and then I landed permanently in 84.
So along the lines of teaching, along the lines of acting, do you find that it's changed a lot from 2019 to 19? The whole process of landing a role, of the whole just career, the art of acting. Do you find it's changed a lot in the time between when you arrived in Canada and where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, the industry has developed and evolved. Simple things like I can now audition for a show in LA. I can do a self-tape in my basement with my wife on my cell phone, So there's a sort of an easiness about and a volume of product that is out there. I guess the challenge is to maintain the quality. I'm very aware that it's great and it's democratic that people can just take a camera into the subway or wherever and create their own film, but there is so much out there. The challenge is to get a good script, to adhere to traditional values and professionalism.
Yeah, and I talked to, there's a few of my guests do teach, and, I asked them, he said, those that really want it are fantastic students, but one of my guests said he noticed there's a little bit of a change. You have these younger actors, and I'm not trying to be negative, but, on their cell phones on set. They're not, I don't know, like if I was working with you when I was an actor and I was up and coming, I would be asking you questions left and right to the point where you'd have to tell me to get away from you, right? Because I always feel like there's no teacher-like experience. Do you find that that's the case, or what?
Yeah. I mean, film sets are a very different place, as is everywhere. The cell phone is pervasive. So, yes, in between takes, people have their cell phones out. They're looking at messages. It is distracting, but that's a universal problem. That's not unique to film and television.
That's a good point.
We are just an extension of that. And after all, we represent our current world. So I don't kind of look at younger actors and go, shame on you, young fellow. It's just that people are focused in their own way. We, as a culture, just have to work with it and recalibrate our values, I think. Become aware of our listening. Our listening habits have to change. Our distraction has to be worked on. I mean, I'm the worst culprit. I find it very hard to sit down and read a book. there is so much information coming at me, and there is so much product out there that, to actually sit and think is a very difficult thing. I think that's why I love acting, actually, is that it gives me an opportunity to sink myself into a simple roadmap of emotions.
Yeah, that's well said. And, there's over 200, whether it's TV or film projects in your filmography. Some of my favorites I just wanted to throw at you. One of the more underrated movies of all time, The Red Violin.
Oh, yeah.
What a wonderful movie that is. And it's just your Open Range, Cube the Witch, Percy Jackson, the very underrated Man of Steel, which might be one of the best superhero movies of all time. And Wrong Turn, which I had Rob Schmidt on the show, the director, and he's a different cat. He's got a unique way about him. Talk about that, the making of Wrong Turn, and just that whole horror genre in general. How do you like it?
I love working with special effects.
Yeah.
I have the kind of face that, it's very angular. So I get cast as aliens or monsters, and I actually like it. It goes back to me having two brothers that are designers. I'm well aware of how designers and artisans can actually make an actor look really good. And I really enjoyed Wrong Turn. It was my opportunity to work with Stan Winston, to go
legend,
down to and to go down to his workshop in LA and to kind of get a sense of where he was coming from. And then we shot it away from LA. We shot it in Canada, but we had some of his team come up, and we had other special effects artists take the different characters. I sat for 4 hours to get the makeup on, and it was 2 hours to get it off. This was, I guess, 20 years ago, when it was full on prosthetics, and the glue and all the technology was a little different and a little more hands-on. I enjoyed it. There's a surrender that you have to get used to, and a kind of a humility, I guess, because you have to allow those 4 hours in the chair to become your prep. You can't fight it. You have to say, okay, I'm in my process now, and I'm beginning to transform. And it's actually, for me, it's a fun transformation. As long as you can get past the smell of the glue and the stickiness and all that stuff. I also had the opportunity in Cube to have full-on old-school special effects where I get chopped up into pieces.
Great scene.
And it was a great scene, and it was really, more time was spent on that scene than the rest of the movie put together, because it was the jolt at the beginning of the movie, and it was in the old days where there was no CGI. It was we had to have like a body cast, and we had to keep matching shots and stop and start and stop. It took forever to do the scene, but it was really rewarding, and I love that whole idea of the minutiae of detail.
Yeah, and so you said 4 hours in the chair for Wrong Turn for the makeup. Was that every single day on set?
Yeah, 4 hours to put it on, and then at the end of the day, 2 hours to take it off, because we needed the pieces in one piece for the following day. We had 2 or 3 backups, but we had to reuse them and just take them off very, very carefully. Yeah, it got to be a lot. The skin obviously gets very sensitive, if you're shooting for 3 consecutive days, which we did occasionally. But the producers would try and space it out. Stan Winston was one of the producers, and he knew well about special effects and how to make them work. So he would try and plan it that we would get a couple of days where we didn't have anything on, and then we would come back to the chair and then do a couple of days. So it worked out, and it's one of those things where you look back on it and think, it was great. And at the time, of course, you think, oh, my God, when's this going to end? It's like a trip on the plane to Australia or something.
Right.
Yeah.
How long? So how many days was that for? So I know it's every day. So how many days was that for? Was it for months? Was it for?
It was on and off for 1 month, I think.
Wow.
So it was quite some time.
I would think you probably want to make the makeup artist your best friend at that point, because the rapport has to be pretty healthy there, right?
Yeah, and we talk about the 4 hours in the chair. Well, that's easy because I'm passive during that. But then when I start to get active and I start to move, I obviously sweat and I pull some of the glue and stuff. I need to be maintained all the time. So I have a team of 2 or 3 people coming around and touching me and poking me. And, every time I try to drink something through a straw, it has an effect on the lips, so it goes. So a lot of patience was learned and a lot of communication. There were times when the special effects guys knew they needed to give me some space. It's right. Like, let's not touch him for the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, and it's one of my favorite horror movies of all time because it looks good, the prosthetics look good, the makeup looks good, and the story is fantastic. So it's like it all works, right?
Yeah, it does. Stan Winston had this theory, where you don't overplay your monster, just like Spielberg with Jaws, with the shark.
Right.
So we were there and we came in, and I think it was his mastery of the form.
No, that's well said. And so how about some of the other movies, like Man of Steel? People could say, see, I'm a big believer in movies, and everyone adds to everybody in that cast. I mean, your part is a big part. You set up the movie, your character does. Was that a great experience for you?
It was, yeah. I felt a little guilty because I grew up in England and I grew up with English comics, not American comic books.
Right.
So really the whole Superman thing, it's not in the bones for me. I appreciate it and I like it. So when I was cast, I would secretly tell people that I was in Superman, and some of my friends would just go insane. They couldn't believe it, And I felt guilty because it's not one of those things where I go, oh my God, you'll never guess what I am. And then they'd say, who are you playing? And I go, Al. And they go, oh, come on. You don't know who you're playing? So there's that kind of attitude. But I had a great time. I mean, working with Russell Crowe and Michael Shannon, what a gift.
Yes.
And 2 very different styles, but 2 very strong presences that were fun to work with.
And whether it's your friends or children, is there a favorite that your friends always bring up? I mean, Supernatural aside, Orphan Black, phenomenal aside, is there a movie that people bring up to you, the people that are close to you that they love or that you're always surprising them with, that's their favorite that you always hear repeatedly, or is it just your whole body of work in general?
There's a rock and roll movie I did, a punk movie called Hardcore Logo.
Okay, yeah.
And it's the name of a punk band. It's a punk band reuniting in the 90s, going on a disastrous tour. And what they do is they come to a farm and they meet their old guru, a kind of an iconic Iggy Pop kind of Godfather type person. And I play that person, and that was a fabulous experience. I really enjoyed it. I really identify with the punk scene. Music is a big part of my life. So that's a particular favorite of mine, and a lot of people, it's influenced a lot of people and a lot of bands too. There's even a band called Billy Talent that's named after one of the characters in the movies. It's refreshing to see that the movie hasn't dated. We actually shot it as a mockumentary before The Office and before mockumentaries were the done thing. The only preceding movie like it was Spinal Tap. And the director started off with the premise of, I want to make Spinal Tap's nasty little brother. and indeed it was. And we submitted it to the Berlin Film Festival as a documentary, and it got accepted. And people didn't realize that it was actually a crafted independent film. It really does. At the time, especially, it broke all the rules. It had a moving camera. It had a camera crew within the film itself. It had all sorts of diversions and explosions within the band that seemed spontaneous. So it was great. I felt very proud of that.
Yeah, and you clearly have, you have fun with the role of Death in Supernatural. You clearly have fun with that role. Is there a genre like you enjoy when you see the movie or you read the script? Is there a genre you see where it's like you're very excited about versus one that you're like, okay, I guess? Or is it just simply all about the work for you, Julian?
It really is all about the work. I'm an actor. I enjoy doing diverse things. Like it's my permission to go do crazy things.
Right.
And generally, the characters I play are pretty extreme, or if not extreme, I should say like primary colors. Like, I'll come into a series or a movie with a primary color and knock it off center, or provide an energy that is then taken on and just maybe slightly changes the direction of the plot. So that's fun. I love doing that. I got to say that I also, the other man's grass is always greener. I would kind of like to be in the situation where I would be the provider of the story, or I would be the long distance runner who's carrying the show. I rarely get to do that because I have this kind of extreme energy about me. So I must admit that if ever that came along, I would be very happy. I mean, it does from time to time, but that's, the more that would be an unconventional role for me, and I would embrace it.
Yeah, that's well said. And, is there, I've been going back and forth how to ask you this, is there a acting version of, authors have writer's block? Is there a acting version of that where you're just stuck, or you find a way, how can I be more creative in this role? How can I formulate this character? I hope that's not a stupid question.
No, it's not at all. I think, we fall back on old patterns and things that have been successful before, so we just replicate them, and they're not necessarily appropriate for what this new story is. But I would say that more likely the kind of actor's version of writer's block is just nerves and stage fright. And when I say stage fright, that can apply to being on screen too. I mean, there's a faith required in kind of jumping into something with both your feet. Generally, you get used to doing it. It's like jumping out of a parachute and knowing that you're going to land safely. But there are times when you just panic, and that your nerves get on top of you, or your desire to please it gets exaggerated out of all proportion, and it kind of overwhelms your ability to deliver.
Right. And I always have many actors tell me that they really appreciate those directors that say, you know what, they're not always hands-on. It's, you're my actor, make this role yours, do it. Do you find more directors are like that, or do you find more directors are very specific about what they want? Or is it just a mixed bag?
It's a mixed bag. It depends. I think generally television tends to be more detail-oriented, particularly if it's a series and it's a bunch of different directors. You got like a 15 or 18 show series a season, and you got like 6 or 7 different directors come in. They tend to be prescriptive, like, hold this in a particular way, do this, and let's make this stunt work really, really well. On features, generally you're cast in such a way that you are being trusted for your own instincts. It's a different medium for an actor in many ways, and it allows you a little more freedom. But, it really depends on your relationship with the director and who it is. I mean, I've had both. And I obviously, we all like being left to ourselves and trusted. Stephen Conrad, who I've done Patriot with, is wonderful in trusting the instincts of a performer, and he writes for that performer. That's a wonderful thing. But there are also other directors that are much more, finicky about things, and it doesn't bother me.
No, and I get that. And we talk about the fact that you've taught and you continue to teach. How vital is theater, right? So every actor has their own path. How vital, and I know we've talked about theater, but how vital is it, do you think, to somebody becoming or honing their craft of acting? How vital is theater?
Well, it's the essence of performance.
Right.
The energy of saying something. It's Meyerhold said it best. It's a triple action. So it's action. You perform an action. An audience, even if it's 2 people, reacts. And then there's this magic that occurs, and the performer co-reacts. So what the performer does is picks up on the energy of the reaction. So, and this happens in life. It happens where there are more than two people, so that a conversation is more than the sum of its parts. It's not just back and forth. Well, it's not just one way. It accumulates, and you understand that in the theatre. You understand if you're in a show and you're telling a story, you can feel the response of the audience, and they fuel the energy and the emotional pull of that particular performance. And no one performance is the same. And it's just the essence. And I think it teaches you a fundamental lesson about we're dealing with magic and we're bottling lightning, you know, and so when you come to a technical medium like film and television, where you are determined by a lens and technical matters, you have to hit a particular mark to get an effect. You must never lose sight of that fundamental relationship between two performers and the performance and the person that's viewing.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. I got to tell you, I mean, I'm not an actor. I love your work. I can appreciate it. I can never do it. I got to see nothing would frighten me more than theater itself, because it would be like a tightrope walker without a net. I mean, it's just, it would scare the bejesus out of me, just because if you do a TV show or movie, there's you can have another take, but theater, you're just out there, you know? Yeah,
but your training is different too. It's like training for a marathon, you know. You go out there and go out there and go out there. So you rehearse and you rehearse and you rehearse. So by the time you actually engage an audience, you know well what you're doing. You're well trained. You know your lines. You're not going naked. I mean, there's a buzz, you know, and you're nervous, but it's actually not too bad. Sometimes I've had more of a fright on a set where I've just parachuted into a strange set. I've never met any of the people before, and I've got like a 3-minute exposition about, gun manufacturing or something. You know, this gun works in this particular way, and if you hold it this way, that will happen, you know. That's a little terrifying, because you've been madly cramming those words the night before, and you arrive on set and you have to deliver. So you go from 0 to 100, rather than the sort of more gentle theatre version, which is to rehearse over a period of time.
How frustrating can it be for an actor, especially like yourself, if you have another actor that's going up on their lines or kind of continually holding things up? Does that happen a lot? Is that a part of the process? Is it normal?
Yeah, it is. I mean, everybody brings different game, and for different reasons. Sometimes people are nervous or have been given directions that aren't necessarily helpful. Actors can generally figure it out. I mean, I'm kind of, I don't know, I've been through a lot of different performances, so I'm pretty patient, and I think that's one of the qualities that you have to have, rather than get uptight about somebody's different method, or somebody that's struggling. You know, you just have to figure out what's at the root of the struggle. And sometimes if you can identify that, you can actually create the magic that I was talking about earlier. You know, you can put your finger on the thing. That's what you're trying to do. Okay, well, let's help. Let's try and make that moment work so that you're happy and I'm happy, and it all works out.
And one of the things thank you so much for giving me almost 40 minutes of your time. I have a few more questions if you don't mind answering them. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So, you're clearly passionate. So, did you say this quote? Because if you did, I kind of want to expand upon it a little bit. You said if the material was right, you'd work for free. Did you say that?
Well, I did, yeah, at one point. I mean, yes. I mean, I'm an actor. I don't have hobbies. I don't collect things. I don't build chairs or construct things as a woodworker in my spare time or any of that stuff. I act, and if I was a musician, and I played an instrument, I would be practicing my instrument. The way for an actor to improve and to maintain their craft is to act. And you need other people, and you need stories to tell in order to do that. So I'm hungry. I'm always hungry, and if it's right, I'll do it. I'm not in the game to be a celebrity or be famous. I'm there to work. I passionately believe that the status of the artist in society is very, very important, and it should be concrete and it should be professional. And So I think it's about being good at your craft and accepting work as it comes along and it challenges you, rather than sort of being picky about, well, is this going to advance my career or not?
No, I thought it was a beautiful quote. That's why I bring it up. I just really think it's to a much, much lesser degree, that's my attitude about podcasting, right? The work is its own reward. Talking to people like you is its own reward. I enjoy it. I love it. And what you're saying makes complete sense to me. It's just really well said.
Yeah.
So my last question to you is this. So do you ever watch a movie or a show, and I know you're not arrogant, you're a good man, but do you ever watch a show or a movie and say, you know what, I would have loved to have done that role, or that would have been great?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I love movies. I love stories. And I first, when I like, here's an example, French Connection. When I saw Gene Hackman on the streets of New York in French Connection, it was so removed from my experience growing up in the middle of England, in a lower middle class family. It was so exotic and fantastic. But I spent, in my mind, I imagined being Gene Hackman. I mean, you couldn't get somebody that was further from the truth, but I carried that desire, and I see movies now where I go, wow, I'd love to have done that, or had a go at being in that universe, and taking it in my direction. I generally don't look at movies and go, oh, I could have done a better job than that.
Yeah, that's what I didn't want it to sound like. Yeah.
Because also that I know that everybody brings their own thing to it, and it's a little terrifying sometimes when you're entrusted with doing a role and you land a role and you go, wait, I know about 6 people that could do this role well. What choices am I going to make? And you realize that your performance is going to end up, for a number of reasons, taking a particular shape, and it's a bit terrifying. There's a little bit of arbitrary choice making going on.
And the introduction and the popularity of like Netflix and Prime and Hulu, that's a good thing for not only actors but for fans alike, right? That those things give a bigger forum or a bigger platform for actors to work. Is that how actors see that, Julian?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an opportunity to immerse yourself in a world, like actors to be part of an entire universe, rather than, you're the guest lead, this week's bad guy or whatever. There's a sense with streaming that you inhabit a particular world. An example for me is Patriot with Steve Conrad is that there's this incredible state of mind that's been created by Steve, and it's like an attitude toward life. I mean, it's framed in a very specific story in a specific place, but it's a way of being, and he's assembled a bunch of characters that work well together. So for me as an actor, the joy is being a part of that world that I know is going to evolve as the show evolves. And in fact, as Steve evolves as an artist, he's now working on a different show on Epix with a show called Perpetual Grace. And he's taking a lot of the components of the Patriot world and putting it into the world of Perpetual Grace. So you feel like you're sort of given license to be part of a bigger universe. That's fabulous. And I think the binge watching allows us to, it's the TV equivalent of reading novels.
Right. How often do you go back to Oxford? Do you go back to England at all, or is it?
I do. I'm going back next week. My mum's 91.
Oh, congratulations!
So she's around, and I've got a couple. My 2 brothers that I've already mentioned are around with their families. So I go back a fair amount, not to work so much as to visit family. It's changed. I don't go back to the old homestead. It's that my family's evolved and moved, and I go to different cities and visit them. So, and I'm always happy to come back here. And I actually go back as a stranger now, and that's not a bad thing. But I realize that 35 years has passed, and I have a North American family, and I think differently.
No, that's well said. Is there anything you wanted to promote or get out there, or anything you wanted to share?
I don't think so. I mean, I've got a couple of projects coming up. I've got an independent film called Stanleyville, which I'm excited about. I'm going to start filming that as soon as I come back. And all I can tell you is it's a bit of a sneak peek, but I'm going to be working on a film that deals with the early life of David Bowie.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Which will be very interesting. And again, going back to my rock and roll interest, that's really up my alley.
Yeah, and I can't thank you enough, and I wish you nothing but love, happiness, and success for you and your family. Thank you so much, Julian.
You're very welcome. Thank you.